Welcome to the quick tour of Perfect Photo Suite 7. When you send your images into Perfect Photo Suite 7, you're first going to be introduced to Perfect Layers. To learn more about Perfect Layers, please watch the quick tour for Perfect Layers on the On1 Software website. The first thing I do when I install Perfect Photo Suite is go to the Perfect Photo Suite menu item and select Preferences. Here you'll have the ability to set various settings on how Perfect Photo Suite runs. First, under the General tab, you'll have the ability to select your working color space. Click on the drop-down and select the color space that most suits you. Next, if you have a mouse or input device that has scrolling controls, you can choose what the scrolls do. You can either have it preview zoom, preview pan, or adjust the brush size. You can also choose the color of the background of Perfect Photo Suite. You can choose dark gray, light gray, white, black, or set your own color. Finally, when you're using the file browser in Perfect Layers, you can have Perfect Layers automatically remember the last location by selecting Remember Last Browsed Folder. For the Lightroom users out there, you can choose the file type of the image that you work with. By default, we work with the PSD or Photoshop file. You can also choose to work with the original file. However, if you send a RAW file in, we will automatically convert that to a PSD file. And you can choose to automatically flatten as a TIFF or JPEG. Next, you can choose the color space for the Lightroom images. You have your option of sRGB, Adobe RGB, and ProPhoto RGB. You can also choose between 8 and 16-bit depth and the resolution of your image. Finally, there are two checkboxes at the bottom. The first checkbox will stack the image that you edited with Perfect Photo Suite up with the original back in Lightroom. The second checkbox will automatically open a PSD file with its layers as opposed to creating a duplicate copy. Under the Performance tab, there are two sliders. The first slider controls how much of your system memory is allocated to Perfect Photo Suite 7. If your system has a lot of RAM, between 8 and 16 gigabytes or greater, I recommend increasing this to somewhere between 60 and 70%. The VRAM slider controls how much of your video memory is allocated to the suite, and the same principle applies here. If you have a lot of video RAM, I recommend increasing this to 60 or 70%. At the core of the Perfect Photo Suite is the module selector. The module selector is located on the top right of the user interface, and it allows you to jump from one module to another just by clicking on that module name. From the left, you'll have Perfect Layers, Perfect Mask, Perfect Portrait, Perfect Effects, Perfect Black and White, Focal Point, and Perfect Resize. Below that, you'll see the Navigator, Loop, and Histogram, which is consistent among all of the modules except for Focal Point. The Navigator shows you a full view of your image and allows you to zoom in at specific increments. The Loop allows you to see a detailed view of where you are when you're zoomed in on your image. And the Histogram gives you a tonal outline of your image, from the shadows on the left, through the midtones, and onto the highlights on the right. New in Perfect Photo Suite 7 is the ability to batch with Perfect Resize. If you go to the File menu and then select Batch, you'll have the ability to specify where your original images are located, and then you can choose a preset built into Perfect Resize 7.5 to automatically apply to multiple images. The left side of the user interface varies based on which module you're in. For example, we're in Perfect Layers, so the left interface is a file browser. You can learn more about how to use the file browser in the quick tour for Perfect Layers. However, for example, if we jump into Perfect Effects, you'll notice that we went from a file browser to an effects browser. With the effects browser, you can choose on a category and then work with the effects listed below. You also have the ability to set your favorites and any presets that you have installed.